As the advocate said, the new flat tax system, he said that it would negatively affect the poor. Households under this system, households earning under $36,000 a year would pay nothing to Uncle Sam at all. So in some ways, it does benefit the poor. The flat tax system would make each individual pay out the same percentage in proportion to their income. With the flat tax, by contrast, there's no special preferences or special penalties based on income. If Bill Gates has 100,000 times as much income as the average taxpayer, he'll pay 100,000 times as much in taxes, not more, not less. There's also an inherent sense of fairness to the flat tax, as all people pay the same percentage of their income. This also depoliticizes tax codes as they are written, since legislators cannot give preferences or penalties to firms and industries they look upon either favorably or negatively. I think that the flat tax would treat everyone evenly and fairly. In the early 1990s, Representative Dick Armey, Republican of Texas, proposed a flat tax. He would have junked the Internal Revenue Code and replaced it with a system designed to raise revenue in a much less destructive fashion than it is now. The core principles were to tax income at one low rate, to eliminate double taxation of savings and investment, and to wipe out special preferences, credits, exemptions, deductions, and other loopholes that cause complexity, distortions, and corruption. Let's first, certainly while the IRS would still be needed to manage the revenue generated by a flat tax and ensure its equitable distribution, there actually would be a significant reduction in personnel, as he said, as my opponent said, and personnel needed to process income tax paperwork. And it's certainly feasible with ever-advancing technology, what it is that even that little postcard could be eliminated in favor of electronic submissions. Manpower costs are the chief expenditure of any venture, whether it be a business or a government entity. A reduction of government personnel and the redistribution of their valuable expertise into the private sector would increase the financial strength of the country. Businesses would have the opportunity to acquire such expertise to streamline their own companies, increase their own profitability, which would have the return effect of bolstering the economy. So reducing the size of the IRS would actually be a benefit to our economy. A flat tax amendment makes sense on so many levels, from greater economic stability, healthier cash flow for government programs and services, and greater productivity and profitability for businesses and individuals who would no longer have to expend time and emotional energy each year preparing taxes. But there are two areas where a flat tax serves the government and the American public on a fundamental level: the reduction of government operating expenses with respect to manpower and non-sustainable resources. Because basically, paper is expensive. We spend like how many billions of dollars a year just on having to get rid of like tax papers in general. So by going streamlined electronic to a new flat tax-based system, it would really save a lot of people time and energy, and give people more time to spend with their families. The flat tax system has already been adopted by other nations as well. Today, much of the world seems to have learned the lessons that members of Congress didn't. Beginning with Estonia in 1994, a growing number of nations have joined the flat tax club. There are now 17 jurisdictions that have some form of flat tax, and 2 more nations are about to join the club. Most of the new flat tax nations are former Soviet republics or former Soviet bloc nations. Perhaps because people who suffered under communism are less susceptible to class warfare rhetoric about taxing the rich. A flat tax, I believe, would benefit all classes of society. Economists like the flat tax since it would increase growth and job creation while also making America more competitive. This is because a flat tax means a low tax rate. By replacing a high tax rate with a low tax rate, probably around 17%, the flat tax would encourage more productive behavior. Politicians understand that high tax rates on tobacco reduce smoking, so why don't they realize that high tax rates on working entrepreneurship discourage growth? Tax reform may seem like an impossible dream, but it can happen. Achieving a flat tax in America will not be easy. Everyone who benefits from the current system, politicians, accountants, bureaucrats, and lobbyists, will fight to keep the IRS, but if the American people get angry enough, anything's possible. Flat tax advocates argue that the current system, called a progressive system is inherently unfair because wealthy people pay taxes at a much higher rate than poor people. The problem with the federal income tax today, according to Daniel Mitchell of the U.S. News and World Report, is that not all Americans are paying their fair share. Rich people are hit with punitive tax rates. This is not good for them, but it also hurts the rest of us by reducing investment in entrepreneurship. Many wealthy taxpayers, though, scam the system by using lawyers, lobbyists, and accountants. This also is bad for the rest of us since funds are allocated inefficiently. And my last point that I'll make right now is a flat tax would prevent double taxation. A flat tax eliminates double taxation by getting rid of the tax bias against savings and investment. The flat tax will encourage more capital formation. In every economic theory, even Marxism and socialism acknowledges that savings and investment are needed to boost wages and living standards. Yet the current system imposes extra taxes on people who set aside some of today's income to finance tomorrow's growth, such as, for example, with her college fund being taxed like twice. Some taxpayers may not like losing various deductions, but treating income equally also means that there is no double taxation, so the death tax and capital gains tax would be abolished. Instead of hundreds of forms required by the IRS, the flat tax uses 2 simple postcards. Families use the household postcard, and all they need to know is their labor income available on a W-2 form, and then subtract an allowance based on family size. The remaining amount is taxable income, and the tax bill is based on one flat rate. The business postcard would be equally simple. All businesses from Microsoft to a hot dog stand, as well as individuals with any Schedule C income, start with the total revenues and then calculate taxable income by subtracting wages, wage costs, input costs, and investment costs. The IRS then gets a flat percentage of that remaining amount. And basically, this would achieve 2 things. It would reduce the tax confusion of the bureaucracy. This formula is simple enough that you could do your taxes with an ink pen on a napkin. How much did you make last year? What is 17% of that amount? Do the math when you're done. It will crush liberals and freeloaders. Those that don't pay taxes rally for higher taxes. How much would they rally if they were expected to pay their fair share? I don't know exactly. If they calculated how much of their own hard earnings were going to the government each year, they'd probably sing a different tune.